Here at the Silverstone Museum, over the winter 2024 into 2025, we are celebrating the legend that was John Surtees. Now, John Surtees raced in motorcycles, won the 500cc world title 4 times, and that's been talked about quite a lot. He then moved into Formula One racing, winning the world title with Ferrari in 1964. But like other drivers of the era, he decided to move into manufacturing and making race cars and having a race team himself. And we have the Surtees TS7, Team Surtees 7, the first Formula One car that the team built and raced. And John himself raced this during the 1970 season. Also, Derek Bell also drove and used this specific car. And it is simple, but a beauty. And if I bring the camera down here, there's a couple of things. We're going to start at the front and run our way through the back. First of all, these front wings. Now, we were in the early days in 1969, 1970 of aerodynamics, certainly fixed aerodynamics. And these wings actually had little adjusters underneath, and you could move the wings to suit what the driver needed for the circuit. And it was all about getting air over the top of the suspension and the tyres, these huge non-aerodynamic features on the car. You've got a radiator mounted inside the front wing, and water would circulate around the car. Now, the idea of this was the air would come in at the front and keep the car cool. So you've got these radiators mounted at the front. The tyres at the front, when you compare them to the tyres at the back, which we'll see in a minute, are tiny. They look really, and stand up next to them, they don't even come up past the height of my knee, and I'm not very tall. But they are really, really small. They're actually on the original race wheels. So if you look up close, there's lots of dink marks and chip marks on the wheels themselves because they've actually been used and been raced. Suspension, relatively straightforward suspension system here, very similar to a lot of other Formula One cars at the time, and brakes mounted inside the wheels. So if you get the camera in there, you can see the brakes mounted inside the wheels, just like most road cars today. As you look along the bodywork though, this was great, and it stands out straight away. You can actually see the rivets of where the car was built and put together. And I kind of love this little detail. It's a very odd shape to the chassis as well. It's almost square. So you've got, if you see where my fingers are here, you can actually see there's kind of a line and then it goes down like that. Not very cylindrical like a lot of other Formula One cars are. This kind of angular shape to it. It's quite unusual in that way. Also, I love the little details. You can see from the camera, and look, I'm going to look through the screen here. You can actually see the backs of the dials and all the cabling that went on here as well. Now, this car's undergone some restoration, absolutely it has, but it would have looked like that in period. I love the features of how these little wing mirrors are just literally bolted onto the screen here, and if Jess gets the camera in here, you can actually see the bolts on the other side of the car here as well. Rather frighteningly, you've got fuel tanks either side of the driver and behind the driver here where the driver sits. Quite frightening really. You're sitting inside a fuel tank essentially. Very simplistic steering wheel, and I love the detail in here. We get the camera in here, you'll see some kind of other bits in here that are a little bit more modern features, but certainly some of these basic rev counter and gauges are all very, very simple. It looks pretty sparse. It would have been pretty sparse. Also very exposed, the driver's head, neck, shoulders, all exposed. Should there have been an incident in one of these cars, probably would have been quite dangerous. We've got our rollover hoop, and then we move over to almost obligatory Ford DFV engine. An engine that was used to great success for racing cars of this period. And then we get down here, and if you get the camera in, Jess, you can start to see where we've got the suspension housing and all the other components at the back of the car here, how it all fits together really nicely. And again, when visitors come here, they can get a really good view. You can literally stand just where I am now and look at this car and the components. The aluminium rear wing, very different to the carbon fibre we have here now. Also very different to other cars from that 1970s period. This rear wing is actually a little bit lower, a little bit mounted, a little bit lower, and a little bit smaller than other ones, but has got the split effect here and massively improved lap times. If we move down to the back of the car, I love how the battery mounted right on the back of the car. Now this battery, for purposes of being here at the museum, it is not powered at all, but the battery's sitting right out the back with the oil tank and the radiators just sitting out here. It's so exposed, and if we just get the camera in here, I talked about the brakes being mounted inside the wheels here. You've got the inbound mounted brakes on the rear axle that sit here, and this was a feature that a number of teams were using at the time, and we're just trying to experiment with aerodynamics and center of gravity and positioning of all these different features. And what I love about this car, along with others of the period, is you get to see the engineering. You can see way in which engineers and people were thinking. And it's absolutely lovely for people to be able to get up close to this kind of thing, because it's the sort of thing that if you're not here at the Silverstone Museum or don't get a chance to go to some of these historic displays very often, you don't get to see. So we're really proud that our visitors can get up close to this kind of motorsport history.